if you're able to speak, we'd love to know you a bit better. Where, the name of your business, where you're based, and how many you are in your team.
Hello, hi Beverly.
Hi Njeri, how are you?
I'm very fine, so good to be here. So my name is Njeri Njoroge. What I do, I have an entity, a design and bid entity that is based in Nairobi and Mombasa. So what we do, we just offer so many solutions for housing affordability, and also tell a lot of stories about it on like our YouTube channel and how people can be able to access different solutions for housing. So I'm glad to be here. In my team, I think we're like 4. We're not very many, very young, hoping to grow and learn more from these interactions. Thank you.
Definitely. Thank you. Thank you so much, Nazreen. Now, I'd like to welcome everyone again to this call. A very warm welcome to all of you, and thank you so much for making the time to join us here. I can see quite a number of our colleagues at Impact. We appreciate you for making the time to come and join us here for the call. So now, to officially welcome you today, we are going to do in our Meetup Wednesday. This is the Africa Berlin Network Meetup Wednesday session. We are talking about talent management, exploring local versus global possibility. How do you navigate that space? And especially for the startups that are here, young startups, so I guess you're now navigating like how do you grow, how do you bring in people, and all of those questions. We hope to have them answered in this call. Now, the Africa Berlin Network also has sort of like a sister program called the Asia Berlin Network. And so as the Africa Berlin Network is connecting African startups in the Berlin ecosystem, so the same thing with the Asia Berlin, so connecting businesses in Asia and in businesses in Asia with the Berlin ecosystem. So we want to share with you, there's an event that will be coming up. We have various events going on. So currently we have the Berlin landing pad, and my colleague is going to share more information in the chat. You can follow a link and ask any questions that you might have if you are interested with that. Now, we've gotten to know each other a bit better. Did I say my name? I don't think I did. My name is Beverly Chogo. I am one of the program managers here at Impact, and I'm really excited to be interacting with you and talking with you guys through this session for the next 1 hour. So I want to now get into the conversation and introduce our very amazing speaker. He has a very interesting profile, so allow me to read it. So he says, this is how he describes himself. He says that he is inquisitive, he is comedic, he is consultative. He's a football pundit or a pundit. I had to check the meaning of this on Google. And a record collector. He is a connector of people, and he's excited by the ability of technology to change lives. He has been turning FinTech into FunTech since 2015, and he helps pioneers in this space scale up teams across tech and non-tech hiring. And I like this statement about himself. He says that he doesn't make placements, he changes lives. So he says that he is the technology equivalent of Mino Raiola. Again, I have to Google who this is. I think football fans here probably understand who Mino Raiola is and why he is that equivalent. So now it's my pleasure and honor to welcome Brad Maasdorp to this conversation. Thank you so much, Brad. I'd like you now to introduce yourself. Well, at least anything that I've not mentioned here. Tell us more about what you do, which company you work for. Welcome, Brad.
Thanks for the introduction, and pleasure to have to meet all of you on this call. My name's Brad. I'm originally from Cape Town, the Cape Flats, in fact. I live in Dubai, and I have been in the tech recruitment space for close to 8 years now. Originally four and a bit years in South Africa, and then got headhunted to come to Dubai, which is quite weird. A headhunter getting headhunted. I work specifically with startups. My mandate is simple. I partner with companies that build products or solutions that serve the people and that change lives, whether that be fintech, e-commerce, prop tech is quite big here now as well. Agri-tech is growing in the region as well. And I think when you think about FinTech and Agri-tech, Africa really pioneered a lot of that in the early stages. So yeah, I connect people with good companies, and I ensure that both parties are happy at the end of a process. I've said this many times, and I'll say it again. I don't care about companies, I care about people, because people essentially are what make great companies. So yeah, that's a. Oh, and I collect lots of vinyl. I follow football. I've been following Manchester United since 1993. Not such a good thing right now, but we move on. But yeah, I collect lots of vinyl. That's my hobby. And yeah, it's a pleasure to be on the call. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Brad. So we are, Musa is asking EdTech Brad. So just want to welcome everybody again to this conversation. Please, if you have any questions for Brad, please put them on the chat. If you want to share your experience as the conversation goes on, you can raise your hand. We don't want this to be just between me and Brad, and then you guys are listening. We want to engage with you as well. So if you have questions, please feel free to ask them. Raise your hand, put them on the chat, and we'll be able to get you on board. So now, Brad, I want us to get started on the questions that we had prepared for you. Are you ready?
Yeah. Perfect.
Good. So now the first question that we have for you is that could we touch on the challenges and the advantages and the disadvantages of sourcing international talent for startups or SMEs? Okay,
so I think as Musa mentioned earlier, COVID actually did a few positive things for us over time. It allowed companies to understand that you don't have to have people in office for them to be productive. And we've seen this trend quite strong in the technology space. There's a very strong push towards remote staffing. And why is remote staffing a good idea? It gives you a wider pool of talent. And I'll speak from a Dubai perspective, right? So when you hire someone to come to Dubai, you have to cover their visa, medical insurance, their flight to the country, put them in a hotel for between 2 and 4 weeks. And oftentimes you have to cover that not only for the individual, but for the family as well. So that's quite a big cost implication before the person's actually done anything for your organization. Also, some parts of the world, people are still reluctant to relocate, specifically to the Middle East. I mean, the Western media gives us a certain picture about the Middle East, right? So remote staffing is really a great way of finding the best talent. And if you're in the Western world or in the Middle East, you can find great talent for lesser cost as well. So you can still pay candidates a really great salary in their countries, whether it's a US dollar salary or a Saudi Riyal salary, but you could still be saving on costs if you were to bring someone into the country. And also just a wider pool of talent as well, because software engineers, they love working remotely now. They don't really care to be in an office.
Mm-hmm. Okay. What are the disadvantages of it? Because you can see there are companies like big tech companies that were saying, you know what, fine, you can work remotely, but we need you to come to the office at least twice a week or once a week. So what are some of the disadvantages of remote or work? And why do you think these companies are now asking people to show up at least once or twice?
I think when you think of scale, like early stage growth companies in the startup space, I still believe it's important to have human interaction, because that's how you build a culture. That's how you get buy-in from people. There's nothing like sitting across a desk and thrashing out an idea with someone over a cup of coffee. It's a little bit more challenging when you're doing it via Zoom or MS Teams. So I'm very much for the hybrid model. So hybrid, let's say 1 or 2 days in office and then 3 days from any location. I've seen companies in the region, one of the biggest crypto exchanges called Rain, offer people the opportunity to be located in Dubai, but work from their home countries for as long as 6 months of the year. So when it gets really hot here, you can go and work in your home country. So my personal preference is the hybrid model. And the disadvantages of working fully remote is it's difficult to build a culture in an early stage startup when everyone is scattered around the world remotely. I mean, it's not impossible, but it doesn't have the same touch points as people sitting in an office, solving problems, scaling the product when they're in the same space. Yeah.
Very good point. Thank you for that. I can see a comment here from Shema. Shema, would you like to unmute instead of writing it so that we can hear your lovely voice?
Yes. I thought that it's not time for questions now, but my comment here is because when you brought talking about the workers or the talent on the MENA region, when companies go and hunt people from MENA or from Africa, they usually go with the mindset of having workers with like less expensive or with less salaries, considering the economics already happening in Africa or in the MENA. The question is, how can we compete or strengthen our profiles to be not just the cheap workers or the place where companies go and reduce their expenses by hiring from Africa? How can we compete and strengthen our profiles in this area?
Great question.
Yeah.
So I did say earlier that it would cost less when you hire remotely. That being said, the salaries that are on offer, and I placed a senior engineering manager yesterday with a buy now pay later in the region. The guy sits in South Africa, and the salary was in the region of 30,000 dirham, which is about 150,000 rand, and that's a net salary because we don't pay tax here. So to answer your question, the salaries are not cheap salaries. They're just more cost effective than bringing someone into Dubai. So you will still get paid a really great salary because talent is talent. I'm an advocate for great talent, and I'm an advocate for people. And I'm not representing candidates for my clients to get cheap options. They're great talent. They'll get great salaries, a little bit less than what you'd pay for bringing someone into the country.
Okay. But I agree with what you're saying. But also I see what Sharma is saying, that it does happen. It does happen quite a lot. But I said like it's important when you compare in other regions, other than Africa or MENA, they are less competitive to in the other regions. So if you think of maybe if we have somebody here who because the assumption here is that people who are on the call are the ones recruiting for their businesses, but also it could be maybe Musa, for example, is placing himself out there and he needs a side gig. How can he position himself in the same global market with the people in the
Sure. So there's a couple of websites, or one particularly that I like to follow. It's called PayScale. So PayScale gives a very unbiased view on what salaries are for certain levels of skills, and it's tailored not only for technology but non-tech hires as well. The other option is if you're going through a recruitment agency, find yourself a recruiter that actually cares about people, because then they're going to get you the highest possible salary available for the role. Also, speak to industry peers, like people on the same level as you, doing a similar role to you, whether they are in Western Europe, whether they are in the US, whether they are in the Middle East. There's not much difference on salary there. And if you're working for companies in those regions, you should at least be achieving 90% of the salary for someone in that country, because the 10% buffer is because the cost of living is different. So, and I'm more than happy to individually talk to you guys on LinkedIn or on a call. If you do find yourself in a position where you're engaging with a company, they've given you a salary band, just ping me a message and say, hey, look, I'm a senior engineer. This is the salary that's on offer. What are your thoughts? I do have a pretty decent understanding of roles and salary bands across the globe.
Okay. Thank you for offering that to the people on the call. Now, to my second question, what are the latest trends that recruiters are looking for in candidates? So in some instances, there are candidates that are headhunted for positions like yourself. Do you think it's your experience, your education, your character? How are they able to even know about your character in the first place?
Yeah.
What exactly do they look for recruiters when they're looking for candidates?
Just 1 second. I'm just answering on the chat.
No
Someone's asked
problem.
it. And I'll speak from an experience of working with startups, right? Because to be quite frank, I don't want to be recruiting for banks. I don't want to be recruiting for big retail spaces because they still see technology as a byproduct of what they do. I work with companies who see technology or people in the tech ecosystem as the actual lifeblood of their company. Okay, so to answer your question, the trends that I'm seeing is in the Middle East, nobody cares about your degree unless you're working as a lawyer or a doctor or an accountant. But in tech, nobody cares about your degree. Nobody cares that you have a comp-sci degree from UCT. What they do care about is, do you have the right aptitude to come in and build cool products and services? Can you solve problems? Are you collaborative? Can you work well with a diverse team? So that speaks to culture. The problem-solving aspect is because in the startup spaces, there's always a new challenge that comes up, and you have to be able to think about a problem in a very broad way, rather than just being a cookie cutter type software engineer or product designer or product developer or QA. So I think we're in an age where it's about what the person can do. Can they add value to our company, and are they the right culture fit for our company? Those are the three things that I'm seeing. I mean, with all due respect to come to degrees and all of that, a lot of us on the call did not have the ability to go and get a degree, but we still have the skills and abilities to do the job. And that's the one beautiful thing about the Middle East is, can you do the job? Yeah, can you do the job? Are you collaborative? And can you work well in a team? And can you solve problems?
Okay, all right. Thank you for that. For some of the people who are here, I guess most of the people who are here on the call are entrepreneurs of their own companies, and perhaps they're wondering, assuming that money is not the issue, how are they able to know that this is a good fit? I know you said that will they problem solve, all of those things, do they have the right attitude? But how are they able to know that this is the good talent or not good talent, so that they can reduce the churn rate in the organization?
Yeah.
Because you find in startups, people,
Yeah.
you know, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 3 months, and then the people are out. And as you said, hiring is a costly affair. Not even just in terms of resources. So how can they ensure that they have the best talents in their team?
This is such a beautiful question, and I've actually seen this in the organization that I work in. When you hire the wrong person, things can go really wrong, right? My way of finding out if someone is right for my team is I always test the why. So what are your drivers? Why is it that you want to join this company? What are your goals, and what are your aspirations? Do you actually believe in what we do? And the same can be applied when you, let's say, an ed tech startup. Does this person actually care about people? Do they actually buy into what we are building, or is this just another job that they're going to be in for a year and then move on? So I think I always ask candidates about their why. What is it that interests them in this role? Why is this role aligned to them? I also want to say that in the new age of finding talent, it's no longer just the companies interviewing the candidates, but candidates are now interviewing companies as well. So companies also have the responsibility to get candidates buy-in so that they can choose to join that organization.
Very, very good point. Now, you know, when as I moderate this conversation, I'm conflicted to which side should I take. Should I represent the people being recruited? Should I represent the people who are recruiting? In the framing of the kind of questions that I'm asking. But I think so far we're doing very well, and they apply both ways, because if you're looking, then you really need to be invested in where, in the role or in whatever the mission of the organization you're applying for. But at the same time, if you're recruiting, you need to look out for people who are actually invested in that, in your mission. Before we continue, I just want to welcome the guys who have just joined us. I can see Isabella Rook has joined us. Let me see who else. Lindsay Maasdorp. Hi, how are you? I can see Joy Kimathi and Matthias Loki. I'll just say the second name here. Mayongo, thank you for joining. Maurice, thank you for joining as well. And Enrico, you are most welcome, guys. Today we are talking about talent management, exploring local versus global possibilities. We welcome you to ask any questions that you might have. We want you to chime in the conversation in the chat section. We'll have an opportunity to ask Brad any questions, any challenges that you may be going through in your organization in order to putting your team together. So feel free to engage with us. You can raise your hand or put your question in the chat and we'll be happy to respond. Now to continue, how has working remotely been received by startups or SMEs who for the most part believe creativity is mostly sourced when people are in a physical space doing physical things? I think you sort of intimated to that, but you can expound on your response.
So I'd say 95% of the companies that I partner with are very comfortable with remote working, whether the candidates are based in the UAE or in Saudi or in Bahrain. They don't really have a requirement for them to be in office 5 days a week. This is a case-by-case scenario though, because if you are interviewing with, let's say, a big retail brand, those companies are still slow to change minds and still slow to understand that candidates can work as well or even better when at home. But for the best part in the region, there's been a few examples where they've relocated or hired candidates in Dubai. However, the requirement to be in office is at most 2 days a week. And oftentimes companies say, when it's summer in Dubai and summers are really hot here, go home to your home country and work remotely from there. So yeah, that's my answer there.
Okay. I hear you on that one. So when we're not talking about learning and development and the skills that, the continuous growing and learning for an individual, what role does that play when it comes to recruitment for different kinds of positions?
I don't understand the question. Can you repeat it for me, please?
So like, what role should learning and development play when it comes to now the people who are being recruited, say job seekers?
Yeah.
To what extent should they continue accumulating certifications, professional papers? Like, should you just continue accumulating as far as you can? Are they really to some extent they are relevant, but how far should one go when it comes to acquiring some of these certifications in the industry?
That's a great question, and I've seen like a few profiles where people have just done every certificate that they could think of. And I think you must just apply this in a very human way. Like, is this going to add value to myself and my role and my life? Or am I just doing it to have it on my CV? And I think this we even have to think about when we go through our day-to-day lives, when we check in with ourselves on the day-to-day. Why am I doing this? Is it going to benefit me? Is this going to make me better? Or am I just doing it for the sake of doing it? So, for example, so there's quite a nice combination of Scrum Master, Agile Coach, which is previously known as project managers, right? So project managers have now gotten Scrum certifications or Agile coaching certifications to make them more relevant in the modern technology trends. Then you get guys who are learning things like architectural design. who were software engineers who now want to understand building architecture. That's a growth growth move that they're doing. It's actually something that's building onto their career. But if you are just someone that's adding TOGAF, project management, agile, software architect, like there's a whole, like a wide array of certificates, but it's actually not making you a specialist in any, then you should really question why you're doing it. And I think very early in my career, in my recruitment career, I think a CTO once said this to me. He said there's nothing better than a T-shaped person in technology. So now a T-shaped person is, you have a few things that run across the top, but you have one or two that run really deep. And those are the kind of people that really stand out in the ecosystem. Instead of having a very long top and very short roots, because then you're just all things to all people.
Wait. Could you just go back to that again? Because this is a conversation we were having with my friends. We were talking about, should you be known for this one thing that people know you, but then when it comes to other things, no, you cannot participate in that conversation. Or should you be a jack of all trades? It's that conversation, a jack of all trades, a master of none. Should you be just a master of one, but you have no interest in the other thing? So I really like the analogy like you used for the teacher. Could you just go back to that again?
I want to answer your question there. So and I'll speak again about technology in the holistic form, right? It is pointless. It is not good for you to just focus on one area and not care about the others, because everything is interlinked, like mobile development, product development, design, quality engineering. All of those things make up a product or service. You can be a specialist on software engineering, but it would be nice of you, or it would be in your interest to understand what the function of a QA is, why product owners are important. So you can't turn a blind eye to everything else, but make sure that you are a specialist in your domain.
Very good point. Thank you for that. I can see Caroline has been raising her hand for quite some time now. Sorry, Caroline, please go ahead.
No problem. Hi, everyone. Yeah, and I wanted to know, I have a question for Brad, but also for everyone else here. Would be good to know a bit, like, to get some practice experience from others. How important is international experience for you? So when you are hiring, for example, in South Africa, maybe the differences, like Muso, I know when you are hiring South Africa or someone in Kenya, like how important is it for you then, or is it like a huge advantage someone having international experience? Also maybe like, hey, of course, it depends also on the sector, or if you would say like, hey, if this one is coming from Nigeria, that's a big advantage, or from Berlin, or if you're rather looking for local experts, or like, of course, it differs, but I would like to know what are the experiences also maybe in different countries. There are different experiences with the importance of international experience.
So you rightfully said that for some sectors, international understanding is important. So I'll take, for example, a head of legal or compliance for the Middle Eastern region. The person has to understand local legislation to be in a compliance or legal function in the region, and that they learn when they come here. In the tech space, international experience means nothing, because everybody is working in a technology ecosystem. Whereas if you're hiring a business development manager for Sub-Saharan Africa, it would be nice for that person to have experience in that space. Same for Francophone, key account manager for a FinTech, someone who understands the region. So some roles you need the experience and the international footprint. For other roles, it's not really important.
All right, thanks. But how is it, maybe Muso, maybe you can also, if when you are hiring, I would like to know a bit like the differences in the different countries or the experiences from the others.
Sure. On my side, I think what would be focusing on is kind of like experience more in the maneuvering of markets as opposed to development experience, because I feel like, not to underplay or pat ourselves in the back, but a lot of African developers in the XR space produce really amazing stuff as opposed to our European or American counterparts. So on our side, it's more of looking at, things like market feasibility, people who can help us, plug in different, global space. That's what we kind of focus on. With regards to development, that's, I guess, relative, depending on where you are. I don't know if that answers the question.
Yeah, sure. That's thanks for explaining. And maybe to get another input from Nazreen, I know you work in Kenya and in a completely different sector. How do you have some experience or some inputs there, Nazreen?
Nazreen had mentioned that her background is a bit noisy, so I don't know if she is able to speak. But I like where the conversation is going, Kylie. Nazreen, can you hear us? No? Okay. You can just put your comments on the chat and we'll be able to reach out to you. You actually, Carlin, you were going on to the next question that I was going to ask Brad. My question was, how can enterprises balance the need for global perspective and experience with the need for local knowledge? Where do you find the balance? Now, let me speak here in the African context and to touch with what Boso has said. There is this idea that international is always better than what is found here in Africa. And Brad, earlier on, you said that when you look at the MENA region, where you are, is that Africa is very well regarded for its talents, and for people who are out there, they really value the talent that comes from here. I mean, by nature, we are hardworking people, based on our history and all of that. So can you speak more about it and sort of demystify this notion that international is always better, and how can people take more advantage or utilize more of the local talent while still growing the team to certain level where they would want the team to get at?
I want to give you an example why that notion is incorrect. You only have to look at the FinTech story globally, right? When you think of FinTech and how it was envisioned, FinTech was created through early pioneers like M-Pesa, Jumo, later on Mama Money, now Paystack, Kuda Bank, for this distinct purpose of solving African people's problems. And who's the best people to solve African people's problems? It's African people. Because we understand the problem. So FinTech is now a big buzzword in the Middle Eastern region. And who are some of the best engineers, product owners? It's the African people from Nigeria, Kenya, South Africa, Egypt, that has come in and thought innovatively of how to build products and services. So I think we really are in a time where the world has changed. The countries that we saw as powerhouses are no longer powerhouses. If you look at where the power lies, it lies in China, Russia, the Middle East. And Africa as the hotbed for FinTech talent. So yeah, that notion is absolutely wrong. How do we mix it up? And this is a beautiful thing about the Gulf region, diversity in teams. Because diversity allows you to understand different cultures, understand different ways of thinking, and also think of solutions differently. Because people who come from different parts of the world think and solve problems differently. So that's the one positive about having diverse ecosystems.
Okay, all right. Thank you. Thank you so much. Now, I want to hand this over to our audience, and I'd like to thank Mutonya Maurice for volunteering himself. Please go ahead, Maurice.
Hi, everyone. I have a funny question. So considering the value of the dollar is different in different African countries, let's say I have a team of developers across the continent. How do I go about fair pay? supposedly my budget for a developer is $1,500 or $1,000. But $1,000 in Nigeria is different from $1,000 in Tanzania. It's different from $1,000 in South Africa. So how would I go about remuneration of the team? Yeah.
That's an interesting question. I think what you have to look at there is what is the rate in that country for senior engineers, for example. And this varies from country to country across Africa, unfortunately. But yeah, it's really dependent on where you're hiring the talent from. Because I can say to you that if you're hiring someone from South Africa, at $1,500 is not going to go far. But if you're hiring someone from another African country, that could be like them making bank. So it's really you have to understand that ecosystem. What is the rate in that country? And again, you can use things like pay scale, for example, to help you understand that. It's a good question though, and it's a difficult one.
It's a dilemma that I've been in, where you find them saying you're paying these ones 1,000, these ones you're paying 1,300, and it's a tricky balance.
I mean, I'll give you an example, right? For a senior software engineer here in Dubai, they can earn up to about 35,000 if they're in country, 35,000, maybe 37,000 dirham. Now you have to multiply that by 5 in South African rand, and that's net. They are not even CTOs or CEOs in South Africa that's netting that money, but it's because they're based here. So it's really about where the person is based, how that affects their living. Is that the right wage according to that region? I mean, currencies are an interesting thing. We should all just pay people in Kuwaiti dinar now.
Much appreciated.
Thank you, Maurice, for that question. I hope you've been answered. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, good. Now, also just to encourage the rest of the team, please, if you have any questions for Brad, feel free to put your hand up, put them in the chat, and we'll be able to give you an opportunity to speak. Eric does have a question. Please go ahead, Eric.
Okay, Brad, thank you so much. I think it's so informative what you shared. And I like what you highlighted, that the major interest for you is to actually help startups connect with talent as opposed to the big corporatives and organizations. Now, one of the things that I have seen in the ecosystem, for example, I come from Nairobi, Kenya. And one of the things I've seen is like some companies are looking for talent beyond their capacity locally, simply because of ability to deliver on certain things. And one of the greatest challenges that has existed is funding to actually be able to pay for that talent. Do you see opportunities happening that we actually have financial, I would say not really investors, but people interested in supporting talent drives to allow upcoming startups be able to afford the kind of talent they need to grow? Have you been able to interact, and how does that work?
Yeah, I mean, this is a beautiful point. We've seen a number in South Africa, great ideas, just not get past Series A because funding wasn't offered to them, and it's quite sad. To answer your question, there's quite a nice venture capital ecosystem in the middle, welcome startups from all over the globe. So in Dubai, we have Dubai International Financial Center, DIFC, FinTech Hive, where you can actually come and pitch to the VC, and you could then get them either to help you raise funding or to raise funding for you. Abu Dhabi has a similar thing called ADGM, Abu Dhabi Global Markets, and they have Hub 71. And they actually welcome startups to come and set up in the Middle East or in Dubai or UAE, and they'll support you with funding. I've seen a lot of these trends. Go One, for example, is an example of that, which is a big edutech, which was started by a Zimbabwean guy, actually a unicorn startup. There's DuPay, which is a fintech that services the Egyptian market. They've set up in Abu Dhabi. So yes, What I think is happening is the UAE ecosystem understands that technology is very much more mature even in Africa to what it is in the Middle East. So how do we grow our technology ecosystem here in the Middle East is to bring in smart minds that have walked this journey and to give them funding to help them build their products and services. So yeah, these things do happen. Venture capital is an interesting point. As a startup founder, be very sure about who you partner with when it comes to VC. You don't want a VC to own majority share of your startup and to change the roadmap of your startup. And I've seen that as well.
Thank you, Eric, for that question. Brad, in the same breath, a lot of startups do not have the funding or enough money to hire. As Musa said earlier, like you are in your team, but you are the development, you guys are the one doing the product development, you're the one doing the marketing, the sales, the water, and it's very typical for startups when they're growing. But it gets to a point when you are growing, but you do not have enough money to hire. So how do you manage that tension, the need for talent, but there's no budget for it? And in some situations, you find that how can they retain talent without necessarily having to pay them more, because the company generally just can't afford to pay more? Yeah. How do you balance that tension?
It's a difficult question, but some of the things that I can suggest is align yourself with people that believe in your product or service on your team. Compensate them in ways other than salary for now. So give them share options because they believe in this product or service. So when this thing goes public or you raise your Series A, these people are invested, and that means that they are also part owners of your company or part of your product or service. That's one way of mitigating the risk of losing talent. Get them to buy in for the long term. So vested shares over time. Put in clauses in your agreements where if we raise a pre-series or a Series A, Series B, this is what you stand to benefit from that. And this also tests the person's real buy-in to your product or service. I mean, we all need to make money, right? That's the truth. But if you're earning enough and you're supposed to get an increase and the founder says to you, look, we're going to have to hold off on your increase, but here's some share options for you because we're about to raise a big round. That's where you gauge whether the person is in it with you for the long haul or they're just trying to, jump jobs every year. That's one suggestion, but there's no right or wrong answer here. It's a tricky one.
I like the question that's being put here in the chat. Let me just open that up. Question to the startups and businesses in the call: have you ever recruited and compensated outside remuneration? I'm not sure it's clear what you mean by outside remuneration. Please clarify that. Shaima also says, I will add also to invest in learning options for employees in order to retain them. Good, that's a very good one. While guys are thinking of the question that's been asked in the chat, could you, Impact Info has raised their hand.
Yes, that's me. Sorry for that. Yes, that's me. Basically, I like what Brad has just mentioned now in his just previous comment, and that's where the question is coming from, to say, has any kind of the startup or businesses that are here kind of said, okay, look, I can't give you that amount of money yet, but looking at the other options that he has mentioned, and how did that go? So I'm very interested to hear maybe if there was something like that from from everyone here.
That's a very good question, Norma. And I think it would be very good to hear from businesses that are here. How is it going? How have you navigated that challenge? for the other businesses to learn as we bring this to a close. I think that would be very good for us to wind this up conversation. Anyone who would like to share their experience with the team? I'm looking around for raised hands. Anyone?
That's okay. Maybe it's something that's a new concept, so we could
No,
do that
but
as well.
I think for the guys who, I mean, everyone here has one or two people who they're working with. I think it would be good to hear how you're managing as a team, or are you, is it like, for example, maybe we are using Muso a lot because he opened up the conversation to us, but how are you guys managing in your teams when it comes to talent management? Maybe we can get two responses before, and what are the challenges that you're going through? It would be very nice to hear from the businesses here.
Maybe I can add something regarding Mona's question. So recently, sometime towards the end of last year, so COVID had really affected our microfinance business, and we were in the losses. So we had to bring on board a microfinance expert. Of course, it didn't come cheap, and considering we were in losses, we couldn't afford to pay him. And we had this agreement with him where he would get 3% shares of our companies in like a graded vesting method. So every year he would collect a cumulative of 1% until after the 3 years we would buy it all back. So he's come on board as an in-house consultant. Of course, there's kind of like a structure where what's our expectations, pretty much like a job description of what we expected from him, but he's not on our payroll. So yeah, that's working great for us because the kind of the wealth of knowledge and expertise that we have on board, we would definitely not be able to afford.
That's very good. Thank you so much for sharing, Nazreen. We appreciate your feedback on that. Any last person who would like to share with us how they are navigating the whole talent management matter in your team? Just one person, and then we bring this to a close. Caroline, I don't know about you though.
No,
yeah.
I just wanted to add a few things. I mean, I'm not hiring or have any shares to give, but no, but I like what I can see that especially also since COVID, and I feel like over the past years, what like to add on that. You cannot only give shares, but what I see is also that companies would say, "Hey, I pay for your travel expenses." You know, like you get like a public transport ticket, or you have the possibilities to work remotely or more free, or you get like a gym pass, or like all these little extras to. To keep people interested. And I feel like this is going like more holidays, a pension plan, or like, I don't know, like but I feel like the companies are more and more opening up to it, and there are more, or as also Shemaya mentioned earlier, you know, like you have the opportunities to learn, to grow. There are opportunities to learn new languages, to attend workshops, to have this learning environment within your company. So I wanted to mention a few of those. I'm not sure if this is in all your companies as well, but I feel like this is something that's companies are opening up more and more to this, and there are different ways to maintain talent and to keep your employees happy besides salaries.
Very, very good point. And especially now you find that there was a TikTok video I was watching, and this guy was confused. He was like, 50,000 USD per year, remote working, or 100K required to go to the office. And he was confused. Before COVID, this was not a question, you know, they could have easily gone for, you know what, they're 100K, like, what do you mean half the pay? But it's that work environment that people are looking for. What kind of culture are you giving them? You could be compensating them very well, but you have a very toxic work culture, you know, and you find that people, they genuinely love their job. The pay is okay, but the culture in the environment is just not conducive. So how well are you treating the people in the organization? What are these opportunities for growth that you're giving them? How are you interacting with them? Is it you calling all the shots? Do they have a say in the direction that the company, some of the policies for the organization? Yeah, so some of those things. Eric has a comment, and then we'll give Brad an opportunity to just give his last words or of advice to the businesses that are here.
Oh, yes, thank you, definitely. And just in line with that, I just wanted to say, I have a close friend who's relocating and within Africa, and he's not going to get the same kind of competitive pay as he's getting here in Kenya. But one of the things that the company has offered him is equity in the company. So it's one of those things of, we will take you up, but you're in for the long haul. We can only afford this much salary, but we know the value you carry. And right now we can't pay for that value in terms of remunerations every month, but you're coming in for life. So it's interesting to see some of the possible things, or even thinking of how to attract talent, being the fact that, you know what, we need this person, we can't afford them, but what can we give them? And also, as the talent, do you understand the value of that? Yeah. I may not be able to get my 10,000 USD dollar salary, but I probably will go down and probably get a 2,000 or 3,000, but long haul, I'll be worth more than that in the next 5 years. So just a comment, yeah.
Thank you, very good comment. Thank you so much, Eric. Now, Brad, we are winding up this conversation. Any last words of advice, comment to the businesses that are here?
Firstly, thanks for the session. It's quite informative, and it's nice to see the different, or hear the different viewpoints from people. My comments are for startup founders is, people buy from people, and you will maintain your staff by treating them well, and that does not mean salary. Like, respect their work, honor their commitment, reward them when possible. This is how you maintain and hold talent. Even Amazon loses talent because engineers at Amazon just feel like they're a number. Try to not let your staff feel like they're a number. For people that are in the process of finding new opportunities or looking to find opportunities, if it's in the startup space, do due diligence on the following. What is the funding? What is the customer base of this company? What does their runway look like, financial runway? And fourth, what is their vision for growth? And what is their vision for you and your growth in that company? Those are the 4 factors: funding, customer base, what does their vision for growth of their product base look like, and what does your growth look like in that company? I'm happy to give advice outside of this call to anyone. I really do this not for placements or for fees. I do this because I really am passionate about building a formidable technology ecosystem.
Very, very, very wise words from you, Brad. So what I'm hearing you say generally is value people first. Treat them as people, not just as a number. And people will definitely appreciate that. Really, really amazing session, Brad. Really appreciated your time coming to share with us your wealth of knowledge. Just appreciate our very heartfelt gratitude. And we hope to engage you more and have this conversation with the startups in our network. I also want to thank every single business that have put time aside to come and join us for this conversation. This conversation was for you, is for you, and the Africa Berlin Network is here for you. So please take advantage of the networks, the resources that we have in our network. Plug in, check our website, and see what is most valuable for you. And for the NPAC colleagues who are here, again, appreciate your time for coming here to support the Africa Berlin Network. Thank you so much. And for everyone who has made this a success, looking for Brad, the logistics around just putting this event together, I applaud all of you. Thank you so much. I now want to wish you an amazing evening wherever you are, or after, it's actually afternoon. Amazing afternoon wherever you are, and all the best in your businesses. Thank you so much, everybody, and goodbye.
Thanks, guys. Thank you so much. Cheers.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks, Beverly, for the great moderation. And